The fear of clowns. There's a name for it. It's called coulrophobia. It's spelled Coulrophobia. It's the fear of clowns. And for whatever reason, the other night it occurred to me I needed to know why people are afraid of clowns.
Are you afraid of clowns?
I'm not. I'm really not, but I'm aware that people are.
Exactly.
In the magazine, they start off the article saying the clowns date back to at least 2500 BC. Egyptians, where they got their clowns was from the midgets in their population. They turned their midgets into clowns.
But where did the whole clown idea come from? I wonder if the clown morphed into the jester of more recent times. Well, clowns are recent too, I guess. If
clowns started in 2500 BC, there were no jesters in 2500 BC. Right?
So
court jesters are like European.
They're a faction of clowns, and maybe a spin-off of the clowns came the jesters.
Yeah.
Maybe
this is an absurdity. It's an extreme absurdity that seems to be, when you have excess of life, you need to have all these things around you, and maybe absurdity is something. The visualization of absurdity needs to be something that you want to be surrounded with or enjoy being surrounded with.
Right.
If the person was annoying, it wouldn't be fun. But if it's good, if your jester or your clown or whatever was funny, you probably wouldn't mind having him around.
Right.
Yeah, I mean they appear throughout history. They were in Western Europe and in England. And the ancient Romans had a clown named Stupidus.
Is that for real?
Yeah, I didn't Google it, but hold on, Ancient Romans had a clown called Stupidus, right? Isn't it interesting how people would, naturally think of all the things you could have around you to have something like that, have absurd. To me, you come back to the word absurdity.
Right. So the mimes are kind of another faction too, right? They split off. You got the clowns, you got your mimes, you got your jesters, and all these different types of...
all the ones we talked about before, with the movie guys and people in books and paintings and...
Right. All the interpretations of clown, jester.
Well, the modern clown started from a guy named Joseph Grimaldi, and he's kind of the prototype of the modern clown, which you associate with the crazy hair and the antics and the
the British stage actor you're talking about?
Yeah, he's a stage actor, and he was the first clown. And they said that 1/8, when he was doing his show, 1/8 of the population of England had seen his show. So he was very, very popular. And one of his last interviews, he talked about, his life was hard because he did a lot of physical comedy. Clowns back then were more physical, punching themselves and throwing themselves on the floor and stuff. And he became a raging alcoholic and was all beat up and, could barely walk, was the end of his life. But he kept doing his show. And then he explained his last name is Grimaldi is his last name, Joseph Grimaldi, but he says it's grim all day. Tragic thing that he was going through to entertain people. He was destroying himself. Then he had a son who became a clown and died at 32 from alcoholism and just, whatever it is about being a clown. But you think about it, is it an irrational fear? Or is it... which is to say you don't have any control over it, or is it...
Well, I guess people can, sense that, underneath all that makeup and funny costume is a depressed alcoholic.
Yeah, the tragic individual.
Right.
Right? And usually the visual of that is clowns are painted with big smiles. You don't see them with big frowns very often.
Right. That way they can frown and hide it.
Right.
Right.
What's his name, though? Krusty the Clown on The Simpsons? Yeah, I haven't watched The Simpsons in a long time. But Krusty the Clown he's evil. Sideshow Bob's the most evil guy on the show.
And then I told you I watched American Horror Story, and that was latest season was about the circus and circus freaks, and there's a pretty long side story about a psycho clown that goes around killing people. And he's pretty wicked. He's
Yeah.
pretty evil.
Right.
But yeah, isn't that kind of ironic? You got, like you say, we're talking about all these horror movies and craziness with clowns, and then on the flip side, they're really kind of a kids' entertainment thing and a circus thing. So just the two sides of that are just kind of really weird.
Right. Well, and then that goes back to what you were saying. You didn't like clowns when you were a kid, and in the thing that I referred back to, they had done a study and said that kids today don't like clowns. It's not that they don't, like I said, they're not even, it's not that they're ambivalent. They don't, it's like they don't care one way or the other. They just don't like them. Right? So they have an opinion to not like clowns.
Right.
I wonder if the fear of clowns is considered an irrational fear.
An irrational fear.
Yeah.
How do you rationalize fear?
Well, that's the thing. You have to come to grips with that. Either it's something you can come to grips with or you can't. I think of an irrational fear as I think it's something you don't have any control over.
Right.
You know?
I got you.
Is this immediate visual? Is it knowing that a clown is near? Is it, what he says, what he does?
Because there's some things that almost everybody's afraid of,
Right.
right? And then there are some things that seem very strange that one would be afraid of, and some that seem very logical. Clowns are one of those ones that kind of fit right in the middle.
Everybody can, has an image in their head when they think of a clown. It's not like you have to think about what it is. Like when someone says, someone calls someone a clown, that guy's a clown. I have a pretty good image in my head of what a clown looks like.
A psycho serial killer?
I actually use the image. If I had it on my computer, I'd show it to you.
Right.
But it's kind of it's kind of ornate, but has that evil factor that,
That was going to be my question. So the image in your head when you think of clown, is it an evil clown, a happy clown?
Yeah, it is evil, but it's not an evil that I'm is disturbing or, or threatening or it doesn't make me jump or, clown's a clown. I mean,
Right.
I don't have that, but one of the things that when I was reading this article, they talked about the effects that clowns have on young children. And the psychologists say that the fears come from having exposure to clowns when you're really young.
Makes sense.
Right? And you think about who are the clowns usually for? Is the little kids.
Right.
Right? So it's like,
I think a lot of times kids' first experience with a clown is what they see on TV. And he's happy clown. He's, very unthreatening. And then you bring this character from your TV to life. And
Right.
all of a sudden it's very shocking.
well, I just thought it was interesting, just kind of interesting everyday thing. And, go back to the original question, is being afraid of clowns an irrational fear? Or is it a learned fear? Or is it just the first time you see a clown, you don't need to know nothing about him, you just see him, and you're like, oh shit, is that the clown? That's a rational fear, right? Because you're not using any judgment as to why you're scared. You're just scared,
I guess it all depends on what your first experience is like.
right? And how it affects you.
Yeah. And some kids are more prepared for that than others.
Yeah, it's always with them.
You know what it reminds me of this is what I had more of a fear of as a kid was dummy puppets. The ventriloquist puppet types.
Oh, yeah.
Those things. I mean, there's lots of scary movies of
Right.
them as well. It's kind of the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would almost think that even more so with what do you call those things? Are they just puppets?
Yeah, as far as I know.
Yeah,
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Those
ventriloquist puppets.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, there's probably been more movies about them probably maybe than clowns. Although clowns might be catching up.
Yeah.
But so if you had a clown puppet down in your basement, oh boy, I wouldn't be getting anywhere near that as a kid.
Really?
Oh no. No, because I had a fear of the puppets.
The big ones, you mean?
Yeah, like ventriloquist type puppets.
What, you had friends that had these or something?
I don't know if I had a aunt or an uncle or something that lived in an old house that had one. Oh. And then they would just kind of build on that and tell stories about it and almost kind of tease us, So there you go. So yeah, I had a young, horrible experience, and so it followed me.
Right.
All right. No, I don't know.
One of the touchstones for me, and earliest memory I have of a clown is seeing him in the Shriners Circus. And this little dudes, the midgets, as the Shriners had midgets, and they put them in these little cars and drive them around for people's amusement at parties and parades and all kind of stuff. And, even as a young kid, you were aware that these people were adults, but they were smaller than you. It's kind of why does society turn these people into clowns?
Right.
It's kind of, that is society's comment on what these people are, is they're clowns.
Well, you take, one thing, clowns, which has kind of two different meanings to people, and the same with small people, which some people are intimidated by that, some aren't. So you take a blend of those things, and you can create some really kind of morbid, ideas in some people's minds that are afraid of both of those things, right? So what's more creepier than taking a creepy clown and then, no offense to small people,
right.
but, some children or people, might have some predisposed ideas about that. So, yeah, that's probably one reason why they don't probably do that anymore, do they, the Shriners?
I don't know. I remember going to probably, growing up, at least a half a dozen of their, I don't know what the hell they call it. It was like a circus, Shriner Circus. Yeah, Shriner Circus.
I don't seem to recall seeing the dwarves.
And my grandfather was a member of Shriners for a long time. He was Masonic and all that.
See, I always kind of thought of them as, I don't know, kind of culty. I never understood the
It was
Shriners.
what people, right, the Shriners is what people did before there was media and internet. The Shriners, that stuff goes way back. I mean, you have clans to, Europe and England and Ireland and Scottish Rite, and that was my grandfather's in the Scottish Rite.
Is it all men?
Yeah.
It's a men's group?
Yeah. Yeah, like a religious thing.
Christian, kind of a Christian men's.
Yeah, I never joined. I don't know. I can't speak about what it is. I know my grandfather thought highly of it, and so that's what
they
my.
Had midgets in cars, like clowns.
It was just it was a time in maybe the midgets complained. We never heard them if they did.
Yeah,
I never heard about the midgets saying anything bad about it. They were probably happy. Midget clowns, they were probably happy to have those jobs, drive those little cars around.
Oh, yeah. I don't know about that.
Well, I mean, what the hell else are they going to do? They can't work at a grocery store. You can hang off the back of a garbage truck.
Right.
Yeah. That could probably be a lawyer.
Right. Why not?
Yeah. Well, I'm sure there's probably a midget lawyer somewhere.
Yeah. For midget rights. It's probably, if you specialized in that.
I think I always want the tallest lawyer regardless.
The tallest lawyer.
So what is your opinion on art?
My opinion on art? That's a pretty broad question.
Well, I'm looking for a broad answer.
Oh, I like it.
How is art relevant to your life?
My life? Well, I'm kind of into the whole photography side. That's kind of my foothold or start into art was through photography, but over time I've kind of branched out a little bit into some graphic design and web stuff and video stuff, and I like the whole what digital brought to art, at least from my perspective.
Really?
Yeah, because let's face it, I'm not a good drawer. I'm not a good painter. I have so much respect for people that can do that.
Yeah.
Put a pencil to paper, illustrate, or actually really do stuff. I'm more of a facilitator, and a lot of the tools that are available today in the digital realm make creating fun and easy. So you don't have to be a Picasso or something like that in order to have fun and do something.
Right. I think that from my experience in meeting people, either art is a thing that you're into or it's not. Right? And it's just something to occupy the senses is all art is. It's something to add, definition or, visual stimulus to other things that are otherwise not so nice to look at. I mean, you could build things that didn't look anywhere near as nice as they do for, you think about all the fancy race cars they make in Italy and stuff. Those are all considered works of art.
Right. Yeah, so there's more to this human element than just practicality of stuff. Right. Things have to have a practical purpose first. But once you get beyond that, it's all about the imagination. Right.
That's interesting you say they have to have a practical application over being just art for art's sake.
if we're talking about art, I guess I was going more off of the car aspect. So when you make something, when something's new, when you create something for the first time, it may have fulfill a specific purpose and be very vanilla. But once you've mastered that, then you can start getting creative with it, and you can make that car into that Lamborghini.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Whereas art for art's sake, I guess
You're just creating art.
You're just creating art. It may not have a purpose except to please the person that's creating it.
You're creating art.
Yeah.
Artist creates art. A guy like, there's a famous artist that, kind of bridged that line between making art for art's sake and making art for money is Andy Warhol.
Sure.
Now,
I
heard a story in New York when he died there. You visualize what his he did a lot of photography and stuff, and close to what would be digital today. But
graphic art, yeah.
Right.
He did a lot of graphic art.
Right.
Campbell soup cans.
Right. But I heard that when they were inside his house after he had died, and I don't know if he had like an inner sanctum where people weren't in it or whatever. But whoever was the person in there that saw the inside of the house after he had died said that there was not a single one of his paintings hanging inside his house, and it was all the masters. He had a lot of art, but it was none of his own.
Right.
And it was, so, I don't really know how I feel about that. You think if you created a masterpiece that you wanted, you'd be proud of it. He didn't create even one. But he was exalted at the time as the greatest. He's a pop culture icon of an artist. Name the last time you had one of those. Never.
He was a very humble man.
Yeah.
And if you are considered to be, of a certain caliber, it's nice to know that he had a respect for the masters before him. It sounds like, right?
Right.
And he had, so it makes sense. I can appreciate that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know as a photographer, I love the website 500px. You want to see some great photography and be humbled as a photographer. I have a hard time uploading anything to the site because it's you can't help but compare what you do to what you see on there. And,
right.
And there's a lot of great stuff on 500px.
Well, that's, like I said, we talked about it in the beginning of...
Have you ever been on 500px?
No, I've never been there.
Have you ever heard of it?
No.
Great site.
I mean, when I think of image sites, I think of marketing application and Corbin? Corbin?
Not familiar.
It was the biggest one at the time.
Go
Corbett?
To 500px sometime. Just look, just browse.
Yeah.
Put in a search for a subject, and you will find the most beautiful, gorgeous photography you've ever seen.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Guaranteed.
So in that respect, then, digital has been a positive aspect or a positive influence on art. I have very definite opinions about art, and the ideas that I have or the things that I think are based a lot on what I read in the past. And I look at the past, and I think that what I see is better than what I see now. Content-wise, not quality. I'm talking content-wise.
What you see...
From everything. Literally from everything. The fact that I got an Ad Week, which is an advertising weekly publication. I get it in the mail.
Right.
They put Kim Kardashian on the cover. I
It's
vomit
sad.
even. I don't like her.
Yeah, I don't like that culture at all
Yeah.
of where we are.
Right. And they are all, you think about, one of these young girls that's unsullied, maybe, what's her name? The tall, blonde, looks like Big Bird. What the hell's her name?
I don't know.
Taylor Swift.
Okay.
Swift.
Right on.
Tall, skinny.
Mm-hmm.
But, and what I see, when I see all these things, these media, all the stuff that's putting out, I see no art in music. There is great music. There's great music that's obscure and, 10,000 people know about it. But what is mainstream stuff now is so bad. It can't believe that modern music would get so bad.
To your point, I think if we take this back to traditional art, to the traditional artist who's maybe paints or sketches, the digital probably has kind of ruined it for them, because in the past, you painted, so you only had to compete with painters,
Right.
and it forced the cream of the crop up to the top. I mean, you knew who the best, greatest artists were in the world.
Right.
You don't know that anymore, because the greatest painter in the world could be sitting in the middle of Kansas somewhere painting pictures of mountains in Colorado from his back porch,
Right.
And we'll never know about it because we're infiltrated and bombarded constantly with all this digital media and art and graphic and what's the next greatest best thing, and we don't really, every once in a while you see one of those great stories about this artist and that does this or that, but a lot of it is probably drawn out and lost.
Right. I think it's just, this story was in the news last week. Here's a perfect example of, they say it was the biggest song so far since 2010 was that Blurred Lines, what's his name sang with the model?
I'm not sure.
Oh, shit. I can't, Blurred Lines.
Sounds familiar. I know.
Thicke, Alan Thicke.
Okay.
Alan Thicke's son.
Right.
Robin
right.
Thicke. Robin Thicke is his name.
Okay.
And he had on YouTube, he has like over a half a billion views on this video. So it was like the biggest
great.
song for the last 15 years. And they just lost in court big time because what they did was they ripped off a Marvin Gaye song, right?
Perfect.
And the whole song was they ended up they got awarded $17 million, I think, or something like that. And this guy maybe made that much, so he probably just lived high in the hog for a little while and lost everything.
Yeah.
And because he was too stupid to come up with something that was original. And it's all about the money. Right? It's exactly what it is. They threw a real smoking hot chick in there, a bunch of them, three of them.
You're right. Why would you ever do that? You got to know.
So what the point was is that there's an absence of art in culture.
Sure.
And I have said this many times, and I think that a lot of the social problems could be potentially the severity could be lessened if the communities and society in general took a more looked more as art as a way to occupy your mind instead of doing bad shit and having bad ideas. Because art is not about having bad ideas and stuff. It's about being creative and striving for being the best you can be and stuff. It's not about being a down and out. Like there's a famous painter in New York City named Basquiat, and he died of a heroin overdose. And I saw his art, and people say, "Oh, this is so great," and I look at it, I just don't see the art. I just don't see the art in it. They say, "Oh, this is the thing." He's the great painter, and it's like because he was black and he died young of a heroin overdose and had a following. He had a following. You see, it's a ton of art out there. But I just, and I look at it. It's interesting to look at, but I look at it. I don't immediately think art.
Right.
I went to tons and tons, not tons and tons. I probably went to 30 over a long time art openings, and it was very rare. Very rare to see something you'd immediately recognize it as art. It was like everything was meant to be offensive or looked like it was done half-assed. So but one thing that was popular in our community is something called installations, where instead of it being a painting or a picture or a statue, it's something that you walk through as like this little mini, I don't even know what the hell you call it. But I never saw one done well. I probably seen better Christmas displays walking through like by Macy's or some shit, compared to what they create. And they pass it off as art, right? And people pay money for this. So it doesn't even matter how good it is, right? And this is something that is new as well. This is something that's new as well because it wasn't always like that. The best artists were the ones that sold their stuff. The other guys didn't. Now anybody does. So in order for an artist who goes in and rents a $20,000 a month space and has a show in Manhattan and spends $10,000 on PR, and has a bunch of people come in and put exorbitant prices on it, and 3 of them sell. Immediately got value. Even if he's never been there, he's immediately got value, and that's how it works.
That is crazy.
Right?
Yep.
So, but again, it wasn't always like that. In order, when art was art, and people were commissioned, to create this stuff. Commission paintings is the ones you usually want to see.
Sure.
Right. The ones that always hid and then get stolen and stuff.
Yeah. Shady business.
Right.
Seems like it.
Yeah. It's not a.
Yeah, I think we've all had that experience where you see something at one of these modern art museums, and it's just like a big black canvas with nothing on it. And it's
Right.
like, how do you get that job?
Right. Well, here's a perfect. You mentioned that. What I was just talking about being bad art and going to the openings. This is what they are. Is they're openings. You know, and like I said, the art just when you looked at it, you knew you were in an art opening, and you looked at it, and you just didn't get the sense you were in front of art. It just didn't
Right.
strike me as art. From what my mind is, when I think of art, I look at these things, I just don't see it.
Sure. I saw one of those once at these installations like you're talking about, and literally there was like a toilet with a toilet paper dispenser and some scene of a bathroom, and I'm thinking to myself, what makes this art? Because it's sitting in a museum.
Yeah.
I mean, really.
Yeah. Well, the point I was going to make is that I see the art at the art openings. That means it's the art that's created today. Then you go to like the MoMA or the major art museums, and all the art is just spectacular. Like, oh Jesus, this is art. Now
Sure.
I'm looking at art. What I'm going out here and seeing here, that ain't art.
Right.
Right. So that's the distinction you can immediately make, and I don't have to go in and know much about the artist in an art show. I've been in one of the big galleries, and you walk in, it's immediately obvious you're in front of a piece of art.
Sure.
Whether it's a painting or it's a statue or whatever.
Except maybe some of those modern art museums.
Well, like the MoMA is like the biggest one in New York, and that's the one that's.
Is it?
That's like they usually like the best artists from like the last 100 years, and then they'll have.
They don't have any of those weird installations.
What do you mean?
With porcelain toilets and
No, MoMA,
Okay.
no. This is New York City. MoMA, I would say, is probably New York City's premier art museum. You wouldn't see something like that. You would be, that's their best museum. So, and it goes right back to the culture. You don't see it in the music. You listen to music, you don't hear art. Art is missing.
Right.
It's missing in the movies. What's his name? Said he stopped making these action movies. The guy that does The Taken.
oh,
Liam
yeah.
Neeson. I
Right.
saw the first one. I thought, I've never seen a dumber movie in my entire life.
He's made like 3 or 4 of them.
And they all made like $1 billion
Right.
each or something, and it's just like, people have been programmed. It's like they've been programmed to accept junk. I mean, the first one was so bad. I was like, this was just a
Right,
complete waste of money. 'Cause I saw it in the theater. And
I've seen all 3 of them.
have you?
Yes.
So you watch them all the movies. I used to watch every movie that came out for years. I watched every single movie that came out for probably 10 years.
Yeah, my wife likes the Taken movies. It's funny because I heard a story about him lately that's changed my opinion about him. Supposedly he's from across the pond. He comes over to Hollywood, makes these Taken movies, makes tons of money in violent movies where he's shooting guns. Well, from what I hear, he's very outspoken against the United States and its gun laws and policies and violence in general. So it's like, here you got this guy. I mean, what a hypocrite!
Right.
You're going to come out and talk about violence and guns in the United States, but it's okay for you to work over here in Hollywood and promote all that stuff in your movies and take home a paycheck. But you're going to give us the backhand when you talk about our culture. I just found that kind of funny, ironic.
Yeah.
But again, I probably need to Google that and check my.
Well,
facts, but I've heard that
here's a
story
simple
about
thing.
him.
I said, what do you think about art? Art's missing from Liam Neeson's Taken series. There's nothing
Right.
about it. It's just mindless explosions. Mindless explosions and actions that a dude his age will never fucking do. Right? So it's just, but people are just, the whole concept of art is so completely removed from them. And, you hear the studios and you read, how they justify making so much crap, and they say, well, they make movies that make money.
And see, I never understood that as a culture as well. How comfortable and okay it is to make movies about violence, and how taboo yet even today it is to get too sexual.
It's not like that in Europe. They have shown full nudity in Europe.
Yeah, I just find that very bizarre.
Yeah, well, you can get it on the HBO. And
You don't want your child to see a breast, but he can watch people being slaughtered on TV. It
been
makes
like that
no
forever.
sense. It has, and it's one of those things that you beat your head up against a wall and you say, "Why though? Why?" We can sit here and agree on it and talk about it openly and say that doesn't make sense. Yet as a society, it just continues to be the norm.
Yeah. Art in American culture. Are you influenced by art? Are you influenced by things that are artistic, or are you influenced by things that aren't artistic? I don't mean just like paintings and stuff. I mean, think about like.
I don't know how often I go see paintings in my life.
That's what I'm saying. It's not
Right.
just paintings. I'm not saying just paintings aren't art.
Right.
You know, art can exist in a lot of ways. You can see a beautiful woman, the most beautiful woman you remember seeing in 10 years. That's art.
Well, yeah.
That's art.
If you're going to put it that way, then I mean, anything you do anywhere is influenced by art. Like we are kind of alluded to earlier, is anything that was ever devised or designed or created, from a sign to a park bench, was made for a purpose that was very rudimentary, and over time has only been influenced by art and creativity and imagination. So anything, even our houses and that we live in, and our vehicles, and our offices, and our stores, and everything on TV, and for that matter, is influenced by art.
Right. Anything that's memorable, anything that you interact with on a regular basis, is usually some sort of, realization of certain, like brands and stuff. Because
Right.
the only place that you think about that, like you say on television or in movies and stuff, is there's really no other art connection to art. There's no such thing as really, there's art museums, and people, 1,000 people go to those
Sure.
a weekend or something, or there's a big art show. But otherwise, in your daily life, there's no art. And it wasn't always like that.
Right.
In the late 1800s and early 1900s, and even further back than that, on the front page of newspapers, they used to have poetry.
Sure.
Every day there was a new poem on the front page of the newspaper. And it wasn't just say anything, like, dislike, or whatever about poetry. But it makes the fact that, the people at that time were conscious of art.
Right.
And its importance in, your daily life. It is a part of, part of culture, and it's part of what it is to be a human being, is to experience and be influenced by art.
And that just time. I mean, we have more options now. Like you said, the communication age took over. When you had a captive audience and there wasn't much out there, you relied on the land and farming. You relied on people actually writing things, poetry, people actually painting things, where now we can create things just out of thin air. So some of the artistry of our art has been kind of lost, to your point.
Yeah, it's marginalized.
Exactly.
And it's good that the software can create all these great things, but there's a difference between working on a computer and printing something out and doing something with a brush.
I agree.
Or doing something in a Lightroom, or working with chemicals on paper somehow, or lithographs, whatever.
Yep.
I mean, that's art. It's a conscious decision toward art. It's always been that way. And, I think people let that take over. I think the software takes over, because that's a difficult process. Have you ever seen how a lithograph is made and how it's printed
Sure.
and stuff on a piece of steel or in
Sure.
wood?
Yes.
So,
I agree.
movie posters. When I was growing up, my grandfather in his basement had a stack of movie posters. Every movie poster made for basically ever, and a stack. There's a couple stacks in his basement. Every time a new movie came out, he got a movie poster.
Right.
And all those posters, all those old brown paper and, old looking movie posters, lithographs, all printed from lithographs, right? And you say, well, you can do the same thing with, an inkjet printer, but it's not the same thing.
It's not
because
the same process.
you're removing the human element in it, and that alone negates it as being the same
Different
level of
skill
art.
set, different process, but is that the person's fault, or is it just a sign of the times? I
Well,
mean,
that's exactly what I said.
know.
The whole general direction, as I say, is that we're exposed to what's supposed to be art. But what is the quality of the art?
anything else on your mind?
I don't know. One of the things when we were talking about art and how it kind of maybe circle back to the beginning and clowns. We're all seeing clowns in art. You've seen clown art. Everybody's seen clown art. It's
Sure.
always crazy. Like sometimes on a black velvet, like you see at Spencer's, and black. What are these called? Black velvet posters.
Oh yeah,
whatever.
those neon or whatever 3D black light.
Right, black light.
Alanis Morissette.
Yeah.
Didn't she sing a song called Black Velvet?
Oh yeah, probably.
Probably.
Yeah.
Right on. So good times, yeah. From clowns to art. There's a theme there, though. Right?
Yeah, I think it's two good subjects and worth talking about. And if you can learn something from the clown history, I learned something about it. It was interesting to me, so maybe it's interesting to someone else.
Right.
Okay, second question. I asked you about art. Now, interested in your response as to what you think it means to be inside out.
To be inside out.
Yeah.
That came out of left field.
Right? It wasn't supposed to be anticipated.
What do I think it means to be inside out?
Yeah.
I have no idea.
Tough question to answer.
Sure.
Right? It's just abstract thought.
Being inside out. So, whatever you think or feel or believe on the inside, you live it in your life on the outside.
Inside out.
Inside out.
I don't know. It just seemed like an interesting question. I never really thought about it.
What drove you to ask that question?
I don't even know. It just occurred to me.
It just occurred to you.
Yeah. What does it mean to be inside out? Because you know what it is when you read about it.
No, I
If
don't.
you try to put it into words, and it's a difficult thing to do.